I don't. Maybe you tell me if I'm crazy or not. I like the way this team is playing, and I'd rather kind of just like sit back and evaluate this team and let them gel and grow together. Like I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not open to the Devin Booker, Laurie Markin, and Zion conversations right now. I'd rather just let this team keep playing team basketball together and like kind of have these conversations more in the summer of like what they possibly need. I don't want to break up this chemistry.
I don't think they have to. I feel like, well, I mean, based on how they play, they don't have to because
Yeah.
it's one thing to like. I kind of like talked about this before. Like we see Cade, Star, Ivy. I think answered a lot of questions, and it would be one thing if it was like just those two, and then you were like, "Hey, is Asar really what we think he is, or is Duran really what we think he is?" Like they all are playing their best basketball right now and continue to get better week after week, month after month. Even Ron Holland, Isaiah Stewart showing to be one of the best defenders in basketball. Like knowing that they've taken those kind of growths and making these kind of improvements make me exactly lined up with what you just said. Like, yeah, maybe a couple years ago, Devin Booker sounded great. The idea sounded great. At this point, I don't think they need him at all. Like, I just think Cade, I went on record and said I think he'll win an MVP at some point with his team. Draymond said he'll bring a championship back to Detroit, and I believe that. Like they've accelerated so much. Like so many of the questions that we came into this season with, like, is Biggerstaff the guy? Does the backcourt work? Will Duran take that step? How good can Ron Holland be? Like all of those questions have been answered in glowing fashion. Like we're not wondering about how good they could be or will they be good. It's how good can they be moving forward. So just roll with it. Just roll with it, especially knowing where how like Detroit athletes in the city of Detroit, like it means more when you can grow them within. Like when you draft them and breed them up and grow them up, like it means more than just signing them and bringing them for a couple years, hoping that they'll be happy enough to stay. Like you don't need to worry about that. These guys all want to be here. They're all excited to play with each other. And I just think it's perfect based on this timeline right now. Like they have the ability to be patient, and I think that's what they should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, like I get like we have off season conversations all the time. They kind of carry the podcast. I'd be lying to you if I said that they didn't. It gives us content to talk about,
Of course.
even in your space of writing articles about like could they do it, could they not? But just the way this team is gelling and playing, like the win last night really showed me like what they have right now is special, and it would be very foolish to try to tinker with it because it's team basketball and it's something that we haven't seen probably since like the go and the work era since like we were kids. Like those guys fought for each other, they played hard together, and it was just a next man up mentality. Like
Hmm.
each player played their role. Like it's not something where like we need Cade to score 35 to win.
Right.
Like night in and night out, like THJ was the hero um last night, the night before against San Antonio. It was like Sasser and Duran and I forget who else had 20 points last week, but like everyone steps up when they need to step up, and I think that's what makes this team so dangerous. It's because you can maybe double someone, but there could be someone else on any given night to give you 20-25 points.
Right. Yep, and that's you don't see that very often. Even the game where Ivy went down, like he was the leading scorer of the game. Even after the game was over, he had like what 20, 22 points, and they had
Hmm.
enough balance, throughout the rest of the game. Even last night, they had 7 scores in double figures with THJ as the high man at 32. You had a double double out of Schroeder, a double double from Asar, along with 4 blocks and 2 steals. He was an absolute madman last night. Like it's just too much that you don't just say goodbye to. Like, yes, maybe a few years ago in the NBA, you know, to hell with them picks, and you try to go all in for a championship. But I feel like some franchises take pride in growing something and being patient with it. And I mean, this patience is paid off to them being in the 5th seed of the Eastern Conference right now. And again, they're not just beating fluke teams, they're not just beating bad teams and struggling with the good ones. Beating the Cavaliers without your top 3 guys, beating the Celtics like a month ago, with your guys or your core together, that means something. Like being able to keep pace with OKC after K gets ejected, like that means something that you can do that. And that's just, I don't know, that's just not something that you need to mess with right now while the winning and the questions are getting answered right now for the franchise.
I was just thinking of the respective teams, the top two teams. Like in the Eastern Conference, you have the Cavs, who were built through the draft and
Yep.
made good acquisitions during the trade deadline. The Celtics were obviously, you have Jason Tatum, you have Jaylen Brown, you have your foundation pieces, you've made good trades, you've kept your cap space available. And you look at OKC, they've been built through the draft, and even the Houston Rockets have been built through the draft.
Yep.
The Pistons were built through the draft as well. Obviously, they haven't had the wins like those other franchises in years past, but this season you're kind of seeing what happens when you build a foundation and you add role players to complement your younger players. I think that's the way the NBA is heading. I think you're going to see less of these super teams being formed, and I think more NBA teams are realizing that we need to build through the draft. Make good, deadline moves like the Pistons did for Dennis Schroeder, basically getting them for free. You got Tim Hardaway Jr. Because you traded Quentin Grimes, and the Mavs had no need for him anymore. Like,
Right.
I think the way that the Pistons are building is going to be long-term success. And I think, these past 4 years, obviously they were really bad, but like I was just thinking like of the top four teams in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, like it's basically been built through the draft. No super teams were really created for them.
Yeah, and I love that is kind of going away right now. I feel like going back to like the Gilbert Arenas comment where you have to be, this big market player. Like, no, you don't. All you have to do is have a functioning franchise, a coaching staff that cares, a front office that cares and has a plan, and then players that are bought in. Like, that's all you really need to make things work. Like, if you have the talent that goes with it, you'll see it accelerate and grow at the right pace. And like for me, I just miss that part of the game anyway. Like the whole, like, yeah, I like that players had the player empowerment where they were making their own decisions to go play with their buddies or whatever. But it kind of lost the ability of GMs and front offices making those shrewd behind the scenes moves that made the league kind of unpredictable and fun as well. Like I miss that part. Now or back then they were just trading guys to wherever they wanted to go or letting them walk off to wherever they wanted to go, and then the league was just predictable from the start with Golden State and Cleveland. Like that was a horrible time of NBA basketball. And now you have young teams, you have new teams that are winning in new ways, providing new talent in different kind of areas of the game. It's so much beauty that's being grown right now, and it's not just the same normal teams, at the top, kicking the bucket by the All-Star break. Like it's something new and exciting, and it's awesome that the Pistons are at the forefront of it right now.
Yeah, I think you're just going to see more teams just built to the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could see some teams just tearing down and just building to the draft, and maybe having a couple rough years. But I think a lot of teams have, like the Pelicans, for example. Me personally, I think they should just rebuild.
Yeah.
I just you have enough talent to just like get the draft picks. You had a shitload of draft picks from the Anthony Davis trade. I think you get a shitload of draft picks with the talent that you currently have. Like that's a team that I'd look at. There's other teams across the NBA that I think are going to rebuild.